Unscripted.
Unshackled.
Uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for mature audiences only.
It's Miguel Fuller.
Holly O'Connor.
And Scotty the Body.
It's the Miguel and Holly Uncensored podcast.
Only on Hot 101.5.
Hello, Platypus Posse.
Hi.
We are live on the Miguel and Holly YouTube channel, where if you're ever have the time and you can watch us, we record it usually after the show around 10. You can see all that go down. We got to get through some stuff quickly. Holly, we weren't here on Wednesday. Do you want to explain why to the Platypus Posse?
Yeah. So I was sick.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And I was telling my friend Erin this or something. I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time. I know we're on camera and I know my hair doesn't look good. So I just kind of fix it.
So good.
All right. So what sucks is that you can't be sick in today's culture with the pandemic and all.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like you can't even you have to know immediately like what you have, even though sometimes it's not possible. But I was not feeling good. And what happened was my kid was sick last week. So not this weekend, but the previous weekend. I've lost track now. It was whenever she was with her dad last. She was with her dad, and when I got her back, because she had stayed an extra night and she stayed into Monday, which is not normal.
Yeah.
I picked her up from school on Monday and she sounded worse than I do now, like very stuffed up, stuffy nose,
that cold.
runny nose.
Blech.
It really did. It seemed like a cold, but of course you always think, what if it's COVID?
COVID.
And it just so happened. Well, let me tell the story in order. So I was like, are you feeling okay? And she's like, I just feel stuffy. And I'm like, okay.
What a kid response.
And she's like, she mentioned that she had like a 99.2 fever or something on Saturday. And I'm like, gonna tell me nothing? Like, yeah. So like we went basically directly from school to an urgent care to get her tested.
Right. How much do the rapid tests cost at urgent care?
$100.
Oh.
Okay.
Wow.
$100. And here's the problem. This was before I knew that there's like a free COVID testing location in South St. Pete.
Yeah.
And they usually have you in and out like in 20 minutes. And by the way, I just feel like it's bullshit that we don't have this info. The only information I ever see about COVID is like the numbers and the people, and fuck you to the people that are unvaccinated. That's all I ever see. Never do I ever see fucking helpful information like, here's what to do if you get tested. Here's what you should do if you have COVID. Like,
right.
It's obviously that's an irritating
Yeah,
thing
no,
for me.
It's the little triggering.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Irritated. Anyway, so I'm over here paying $100 at the urgent care to get my kid tested. And the rapid test came back negative. But of course, we also did a PCR test. But since the rapid test came back negative, the doctor was like, you can send her to school tomorrow because the rapid test is negative, and you'll get the PCR results in another day. And so we're like, all right. And she didn't have a fever at that point, just a runny nose. And she's been wearing her mask anyway at school. So I sent her to school, and then we got the results the next day that the PCR test was also negative.
Oh, good.
She did not have COVID. Hey. She has some kind, and I think we also forget that there's other sicknesses out there.
Yeah.
So she's got some kind of cold, head cold, sinus infection. I don't know. So she went through the week continuing to be stuffed up. A lot of nose blowing, a lot of snuffling. At one point, this home skillet comes up and it was like, in my face. And when I tell you I nearly slapped this girl, I'm like, that is rude. And we're in a pandemic. And she was like, I'm just kidding. And I'm like,
I cannot imagine.
I am like embarrassed. I'm like, what if you do that to a friend? She's like, I would never do that to anyone, just you. And I'm like, well, thanks a lot.
And
if I ever did that to Angela Jackson, she would have stormed from X-Men, pushed me with the wind and a tornado up against the wall.
Yeah. So it finally went away by last weekend. And then what day was it? I think it was Monday. My throat started feeling a little tickly.
Oh yeah, he came in.
I've been having a little issue with my throat anyway, which I believe was allergies. So then on Tuesday, I was going to have lunch with a friend. But when I went to bed Monday with my throat feeling tickly, I slept terribly. My nose was I couldn't breathe all night. And I came into work Tuesday and I was like, You guys, I don't know if I'm going to go to my lunch.
Mm.
And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I know I got what Maya had. I know it because she was literally in my face. And so then on Tuesday, I canceled the lunch. I went to the doctor and explained like my history and my kid's history. And he's like, you probably don't have COVID because, I've had COVID. I've also been fully vaccinated. And he's like, and your kid didn't have COVID. So you probably have whatever she has. We're just going to give you some antibiotics. And then on Wednesday, I had started the antibiotics, but I was like, I can't do the podcast. I don't feel good. And that's why we didn't do the podcast. But it just sucks because I can't talk about any of that because people are so sensitive that like, are you sure? Like I got negative COVID tests back, rapid and the other one. And people are like, but are you sure though? And I'm like, no, I'm sure. So I don't have COVID.
It's so interesting how we're going to be dealing with the effects of COVID. I was hoping that we would continue with some of the hygienic ways of living, but I have been in a work bathroom a couple of times.
It is
where I've been
so
in a toilet,
infuriating.
and I have I'm quiet as a mouse when I'm in the stall pooping, and I will hear someone come in, pull the junk out, pee, and then hear them walk right back out that fucking door without washing their hands. And I'm like,
wash your damn hands.
it takes you 20 seconds.
And it feels good. Like to have clean hands, like legit feels good.
It does feel good. I would
Like,
absolutely
right.
give you that.
And that's what I don't understand is like there have been times where maybe at home, like, because when I'm at home, I will sit down and pee. And I'll sit down and pee. So like I literally have not touched my junk.
You're that tired, aren't you?
Well, girl, that's all the time. I will not touch my junk.
Nice, yeah.
No one will be at home, and I'm literally going from the toilet, sitting on toilet to the couch.
You don't have to explain. It's okay that you don't.
Well, so I'm just saying. But then, but here's what'll happen is I'll be like, oh, girl, I'm tired. Like, especially if it's like a Sunday and I'm hungover. I'll walk to the couch, sit on it, and I'll sit there and I'll be like, I just need to just at least put some water in my hands or something. So like, I can't imagine touching my junk, peeing. They probably got little particles of pee on their hands.
Pee particles.
And then just like walking out at work and then touching everything.
Well, I think the bigger thing is like when I touch my junk, because I feel like I got clean junk. Like I'm not worried about my junk. I think what I'm more worried about is touching all the door handles, grabbing onto other things. Like that's why I wash my hands, not necessarily because of my junk. But
he got clean junk.
I do.
I would hope.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like my junk's not the thing that's gonna dirty my hands. It's when I walked in the bathroom and I grabbed the door handle. That's what's going to be the germs on the hand. So like if at home, like if there's just a walk up, I can just pee and walk out. I wouldn't be as worried. But I think like that's the bigger thing, especially if you're in public or like anywhere, like you go to a bar, a restaurant, and you're just touching the table, touching the walls, going in, touching doors.
Like, touching.
Your hands just collect all that shit. And it's just like sits there like a little germ pallet. That's why you wash.
Yeah.
Don't be walking all over the place and not washing your hands. It's so gross. But people have that same story all over the workplace.
Yeah.
Wash your damn hands. That's nasty.
It's true. And my kid washes her hands. Like she has gotten better hygiene. Although we had to walk her back. Like when she would get up in the middle of the night 2 years ago, it's almost been 2 years. Like she would be like frantically washing it. Like she was starting to have raw skin because I felt bad for the kids because it's like, where's the happy medium?
Right.
So now it's like if she gets up in the middle of the night, I'm like, don't even worry about it. Just go back to bed because then she'd like wake herself up, wash her hands, call me. I'm like, don't even wash her hands. Just go back to bed. Like, because come on,
right.
I'm not trying to wake up in the middle of the night. And then like you wash up in the morning anyway. But I just feel like things have gotten weird. That's all.
Yeah, we're all jumbled, scrambled.
We are.
Well, let's get even more weird.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
So if you go to Facebook, our Facebook group that we have for the show and the podcast.
Are you telling us to do it now?
No. Oh. It's called Miguel and Holly Fam /Platypus Posse on Facebook. Or if you just go to the Miguel and Holly Facebook page and then click on more, then groups.
Yes.
So last night I put, for tomorrow's podcast, we want to do a Q&A. If you have any questions you wanted answered from us, put them in the comments and we'll go over them tomorrow. Thanks for being amazing.
I'm excited about this.
So we're going to try to move through this as quickly as possible. And then whatever we don't get to, then we'll pick it back up on
Were there a
Monday.
lot of questions?
There were actually.
Oh, yay.
So let's see here. We'll go. Let me do it in order. I'm sorry. Let me do most recent. And then I'll start from the bottom. Started from the bottom.
Now we're here.
And thank you for everyone that has commented and added. We got over 200 people.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that many. Holy shit.
I'm not even on.
That's cool though, because literally I went through it. I saw like a couple posts. I was like, oh, okay, like it's in its growing phase. I didn't think it had 200 people.
Yeah.
I
200
didn't either.
people.
I just want to go take a peek real quick.
A little peeky.
Yeah.
Francisco, he was the first question. He said, I have a question for Miguel. Mr. Miguel.
Oh.
Are you going to invite a Miguel and Holly fam to the wedding? No. Sorry. They're like
it is
some
limited
friends.
space, right?
I mean, it's like literally we've got 165 we can have in there. And there are some people that I'm hoping don't come so I can invite some other people.
Like there's a waiting list.
Yes. So I'm like, so unfortunately, we won't be able to do that. If we have some more money, girl, well, I'd love to have everybody, but unfortunately, we can't.
So
yeah.
Shannon said, what are some podcasts that Miguel, Holly, and Scotty listen to personally? Scott?
Podcasts that I listen to. So I listen to other radio shows, but also I've been listening to, let me go to my podcast app. I did the, what was that? That Dirty John podcast. That was sick.
That's good.
That was a good one. I also do On Purpose with Jay Shetty. He's like a cool speaker, cool dude. I listen to the Tony Robbins podcast. Business Wars. Business Wars is another one. And I also listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. I know that okay. I know that was going to be a response. My girlfriend has the same response too.
It's interesting.
It
I'm
is
kind of glad you
interesting.
do because I like to get all the sides, right? Wouldn't you rather have all the information?
Yeah, well,
and
again,
see what people are talking about.
Some of his conversations, the thing I like about his conversations is because he has just a gamut of people, just like some people that have just been really interested. Like one of the interviews that I loved and I listened to over and over again is the one with Kevin Hart. We get to really dive into Kevin Hart's story, how he got to where he is now, what is his purpose in life, how he continues to grow. And so you get to really dive into people and who they are. Some of the things that Joe Rogan says, I don't necessarily like agree with or like, or does it piss me off? Yes. Some of the things I also do agree with. And I'm like, okay, I see where you're coming from. So I get definitely a different side of things. I haven't really been listening to it lately because he's definitely done more like hardcore, certain like point of views, like talks. And once you go too far, you kind of lost me because I'm like, okay, I don't agree with any of it. I'm just going to
see, the problem that I have with him, and I will say to be completely transparent, I've never listened to him. I'm going based strictly off of what I've seen on social media. But like, I don't mind you having a different point of view. I love that. Like, let's talk about it. That's why a lot of the podcasts I listen to, I like it when they go and give the history of like conservatism or evangelicals and how they two mix together. I love to understand that. I don't like when he promotes false information that can harm people.
That's where I started to kind of head out.
That's where I take offense. And especially as someone who has influence, like, yes, if you want to promote a different way of thinking, girl, do it, get it. That is your prerogative. But when you promote misinformation that can harm people and they believe you, that's when I start to get angry. And I'm like, you are abusing your platform and your responsibility as a broadcaster.
Yeah. And again, like I used to listen to him a lot. And then again, like a lot of heavy stuff started to happen. That's when I really haven't checked out his interviews much lately. And the last one that I'll recommend is Unlocking Us with Brene Brown. That is a podcast that could change your life. Unlocking Us. She is amazing. Her books are amazing. If you've ever heard of Brene Brown.
Second and third and fourth that. Yes.
Check her out. Now that's somebody completely opposite. Or we were just talking with Joe Rogan. Like she is just, I wish I could meet her. I would love to meet her.
Same.
She's an amazing woman.
I want to say probably one of her books helped me have the courage to get a divorce. She's amazing.
She's amazing.
I love that. I just followed that. I have to listen to
that. Check her out.
Holly, I know your time is so short. You don't have time to listen to podcasts, do you?
I was going to come on here and just basically say I'm sorry. I don't listen to podcasts.
That's okay.
A lot of people don't have the time.
I mean, if I may, I was going to say, if I did have time to listen to podcasts, and I'm not saying like, oh my God, like I'm so busy and I'm better than people. I simply don't. I just simply can't.
Well, also, when I think about when I listen to podcasts, like we live in Largo now, so I've got a 25-minute drive to and from work. And then when I'm at home by myself doing stuff, I'm by myself. When you're at home doing stuff, you have your person, your mom, your daughter.
You can't have headphones in.
So you don't have time to casually listen to podcasts like we do.
No, and honestly, if I do have time by myself, the last thing I want to do is something that I'm not really super invested in because like I just want to stay quiet. You know what I'm saying? Like I just want to get done things for me. And the podcast could be for me, but there's so many other things that are also for me. So anyway, I don't need to explain myself, but I don't listen to podcasts. But if I did, and when I will at some point, I second Scott's recommendation for the Brene Brown podcast.
So good.
I would recommend We Can Do Hard Things with Glennon Doyle,
Yes.
who I love, and she's an author as
Has a good
well.
Instagram.
And she is so great. She wrote the book Untamed, so that's good. I really recommend Oprah's Super Soul podcast.
So
And
good.
there's one random one that I did listen to a couple episodes of called Spirit, Purpose, and Energy with JJ Flazanes.
Oh, good old JJ.
That's this podcast. And I used to really, I listened, I think, to like 2 or 3 of them years ago. And it's just really uplifting and spiritual. And that was good. So I don't listen to podcasts, but if I did, I'd really try to listen to them.
I'm gonna rattle off a few because I listen to a lot.
All the time you're listening to podcasts. Every morning. That's what I wake up to. I'm like, oh, Miguel's in the shower. Here's a podcast.
So I'm gonna run down my schedule of podcasts, and then here are just some bonus ones. So when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I listen to is called What a Day, where it is a quick 20-minute. Here's what happened yesterday that you need to know. It's very liberal bent podcast. They cover politics, pop culture, news, liberal bent, really quick. Then I listen to other morning shows. And then when I leave work, I listen to NPR's Up First. And that's like a straight down the middle. Here's what happened. No opinion.
Nope.
I love that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to get news.
Right. Well, and that's why I do both. That's why I like to get the liberal side, and I like to hear straight down. And then New York Times, they do The Daily. It's like a 25-minute podcast where they take one subject and then they just go deeply into it. And so you get a little bit more context around the story. So those are like the 3 I listen to like every single day. And then there's one I listen to twice a week called Pod Save America. And it's a group of guys that used to work for Obama. And they started this company called Crooked Media where they have a bunch of different podcasts. And they sort of very liberal discuss politics from their point of view. But what makes it interesting is that they have worked in the White House. And so they'll be like, here's what's probably happening inside the White House right now. And especially like when everything was happening with Afghanistan and there was like 3 other things happening. And they're like, here's what it was like when we went through something similar in the Obama White House. And so it gives you an interesting perspective from a human level on like what those humans in that house are dealing with when like the world is like falling apart at the seams.
That's great.
And then in the evening time, I listen to while I'm making dinner usually. I told you I listen to a lot. Consider This from NPR, where they sort of break down something from the day that's really interesting, and it's about a 14-minute podcast because a lot of these are really quick.
Yeah.
And then also NPR Politics, where they sort of their political reporters discuss a big topic of the day and give their sort of not opinions, but their perspective and their historical point of view of what's happening in the moment. And then one last one, Throughline from NPR. It's a historical podcast, which is, if there was one podcast that I could like put on everyone's phone and make you listen to, it's not opinion based. It just tells you the history of race, policing in America.
That's cool.
Just understanding the history of stuff. And you don't realize how everything we do, because we've been around for 300 plus years, this country, nothing is just random.
Oh, no.
The way that we do things, the way that like they're voting. Like I always thought, oh, we voted the way we do with the electoral system. No, like the way that like George Washington became president, fascinating to me. And they do it in a fun way where it's not boring. So those are just a few of the podcasts that I listen to.
It's so interesting with your
make up
podcast.
for
It's such a
mine.
like a nerd look at podcasts, which is awesome. Like the news and the hardcore political, like it just makes so much sense. Maybe like a future thought for what you should start diving into more on producing or getting out.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's a lot of interest in there.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I love
listen to that much NPR. Woo, that should be a skill in itself. That's good.
And then I don't want to mess up your name. I think it's Hadish or Hadesh. They asked, what books are y'all reading?
Oh, man.
Really quick, Rachel Laminati on the Facebook or on YouTube. What was the last podcast you mentioned?
Oh, it's Throughline. From
Throughline.
NPR, yeah, Throughline. Sorry.
Right, moving forward. Yes.
What books are y'all reading? I will say I'm not reading anything right now.
Damn it!
Because all of my time is taken up with podcasts.
So right now,
Yeah.
well, okay, so if you have Audible, there's also a lot of cool Audible books that like I have. There's one from Kevin Hart that's only an Audible book. So it's almost like a podcast, but it's not a written book. You can only listen on Audible. It's called The Decision by Kevin Hart. So cool to listen. I'm already listening to it on my second time through. It actually, like, that's what I trained and listened to when I was doing my marathon last year. I would listen to that because it's just such a cool thing to really dive into the things that you want to dive into. The other one I recommend from like Matthew McConaughey, Greenlight. Me and a buddy keep talking about that one. Read that one. That is a great book to just like look at your world in a different perspective, realize what you really want to do with life, and also to hear his story. Phenomenal.
Okay.
And then the other one, I'm trying to think, what's the one? I'm reading one from the other radio host, Bobby Bones. He has another book I'm rereading. It's gosh, dang it, I can't think of the name of it.
Is it his second book?
Yes. I can't think of the name of it right now, though, off the top of my head. I could probably look it up, but
Well, whoever could look it up. Also.
yes. Yeah, but that second one, it's another success book. A lot of the books that I read are all like books that are just, nonfiction, what people did in their life, how they got to where they are. The last book that I read that was phenomenal was Tiffany Haddish, The Last Black Unicorn.
I've wanted to read
So good. If you want to see somebody that has just come from the bottom and made their life just the way they deserve to have it, and the struggles that she has gone through and the things that she speaks out on, holy shit. Like, her life is crazy. The things that she's done is crazy. And it's just so cool to see where she is now from where she's come from. So I recommend that one. Tiffany Haddish, The Last Black Unicorn.
Love that.
Yeah.
Veronica.
Wait, I have books.
Oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I thought you said you didn't have time to read.
I don't. But again, like the podcast, I have recommendations. I actually, I want to say because I said Glennon Doyle's podcast, We Can Do Hard Things. The book Untamed. Every woman should read this book. Every woman should read this book. I made time for it because I love Glennon Doyle anyway. But Untamed, Glennon Doyle is amazing. I would say any of the Brene Brown books, like Scotty and I talked about.
Oh, so good.
And I just bought a book online. I don't know when I'm going to read it, but it's called Natural Magic. And it's this woman who has an Instagram. Her name is Lindsay. It's called I think her Instagram is like Witch of the Forest, and she runs it from over in the UK. And she talks about crystals and herbs and moon water and shit that I'm into. So she had written a book, and so it's like step by step on how to get more into that whole thing. So I just bought that. Again, don't know when I'm going to read it. And the last book that I actually did read that was so good that after work I forced myself to find time, and I talked about it on the podcast before, was Escaping from Eden. Does Genesis teach that the human race was created by God or engineered by ETs? Shit gets deep, y'all. If you are ready to go on that journey, that's the book. It's not that long. And the end of it gets I had to reread paragraphs and pages because I was like, wait, what did you just say? Help me help you. But especially the first part of the book is pretty easy to understand, and it'll make your brain go. So those are my recommendations.
I love those type of books where you're just like, wait, let me go back in and reread that again. What the fuck did you just say to me?
I'm like, oh my God, that does make sense. So anyway, okay, that's it.
Veronica Finmore said, do you ever feel pressured to regularly post on social media / have the perfect post every time?
Wow, what a good question.
And how insightful.
Yes,
Right?
actually, I think about this all the time. I do feel pressure. If I don't have anything on my story, I feel like, oh, shoot, I need to get something up to be on just other people's timelines, honestly. I try not to worry about the perfect post anymore on Instagram. I used to kind of add some color to post or edit a little bit to make it look sharper, but now I'm like, screw it. Here's the picture. Here's the moment. I don't want to, add any extra blah to it unless it's really dark and you got to lighten it up to actually see what's happening. But I definitely feel a pressure to keep things going. But I also do remind myself hey, one day of not posting on my story, I'm going to be okay. So I do have to have that reminder constantly.
I think one of the things that I can say that I'm proud of in sort of Holly and I being your big brother and sister in radio is us stripping the thought that you needed to have how you thought you should be as a radio personality.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember there were times when you first started when you would be like, well, I've already posted too much on my story, so I can't. Or I don't.
This posted. Did at one point you thought a post didn't get enough likes, so you thought it was bad?
Yeah, and I took it down.
Yeah.
Right. And then because that was
I was like, what are you doing?
you were in college
Yeah.
and like that's how your thought process
Well,
was.
that's how we grew up with like when I went into Instagram, it was that. Like
Yeah.
you
Right.
went in and it's like maybe it was a subconscious thing, but maybe it was also the environment I was around. It was like the most popular post, or you look at people that get popular, you compare.
Right.
So you're constantly in a world of comparing. And so it took a couple years to finally get out of that thought process. And now like I'm out. Like I don't care. Like I post because I want that timeline to represent my life. I don't try to put the perfect photo of, hey, this is us. This is me. My
Right.
perfect life. I'm like, nah, man, I'll get on there and talk about some real ass shit. And then if some people ask, I have a lot of friends that talk about my Instagram. Like, do you think you portray your real life? And I'm like, yes, because what you need to do is read my caption.
Mhm.
What you're only going to get from a picture is what you make up. But if you decide to actually look into what I meant with this picture and what I said in this post, look at my caption, because I guarantee you, I go into some deep stuff. I talk about my real thoughts in those moments. I use that as a diary. I use that as a place for me to put out my real thoughts that you don't get to see if you don't hang out with me all the time. Because it definitely is easy to look at my Instagram and be like, man, Scott is just killing it, doing all the things. He's happy all the time. And yeah, I'm grateful for life until the max. But also I go through a lot of human shit, and I've gone through a lot of human shit that's like, this is my place to like try to help you understand, like, this is who I am as a human in my core through a post. If we've only known each other to like social media, you're going to get as much as me as I could write in this caption or I could put out in this video. And I try to do a lot more video content because I want to make sure that it's like, I'm a real person. I'm not just this figure that's like, oh, happy-go-lucky. Like, hell yeah, it's going to be a lot of it, but read deeper. And it's always there. I don't hide that.
I think you do a good job of that.
I do
Absolutely.
try. I really do try.
Holly, do you ever feel pressured to regularly post on social media / have the perfect post every time?
I do not feel pressured to post regularly, although I should, because in this career, that's like your lifeline, and it helps benefit you as a personality and the show and the station. So I'm failing in that aspect, and I see it and I understand it, but I can't bring myself to care. When I do post, do I worry that it is the perfect post? A little bit. Like sometimes I'm like, is this thing worth it? Is it worth it? Because sometimes like when social media first got started, I'd scroll through and see like some picture that's like kind of out of focus or like a half birthday cake. And I'm like, I do not give a shit about this. So if I don't care about it, are other people gonna? I have that conversation with myself. I'm like, is anyone going to care about this that I'm gonna post? That's the
Right.
conversation I have, because maybe I wouldn't care to see someone else's birthday cake. I'm like, I don't want to see mine. No. But I underestimate that people might.
Yeah.
Just because I don't doesn't
Right.
mean other
Then
people
they
don't.
won't. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So I have a weird filter. But something happened in my life several years back in my family of sorts that totally changed the way that I use and view social media. So going back to the first part of it, do I feel pressured to post? I suddenly couldn't post what I wanted to anymore. And a lot of it had to do with me being a public persona, and social media changed in a day for me. And it was like I lost the ability. I no longer have the ability to post whatever I want to. And when you get that sort of restriction for whatever reason, or if you've always had any sort of restriction on what you can and cannot share, and like if you can't share things even if you want to, it changes your relationship with social media. And it was very difficult. My entire relationship with social media changed, and not a lot of other people are in that realm. They're not in that club. It's a pretty low club, low member club. So it took me a while, because we all depend on social media for validation, for views, for feeling seen, for feeling part of something. And when that sort of gets taken away for a bit or for a long time, or when it changes, when your relationship with it changes, you kind of have to do a little bit of self-reflection and evaluation and figure out who the fuck you are and what's important and
Right.
what's not. And I know that I'm being very vague, and for that I apologize, but it all goes hand in hand with my relationship with social media, in that I can't share my whole entire life. And it sucks. It really, really, really sucks a lot. Same thing with the job. I can't share everything like I could on the air. I have restrictions. I feel a little bit handcuffed. And that sucks. So what happened was, to get to the end of this whole diatribe, what happened was, after I went through that transformation with social media and what I can and can't share about my personal life and on the radio and out loud, it made me a couple things. It freed me up a little bit. It made me less a slave to the likes and to the expectations, because I was like, y'all ain't gonna want to see what I have to put out anyway, so I don't owe you anything. And it also made me a little bitter. It made me a little jealous of people who just haphazardly share every fucking thing. And it made me be like, must be nice. Like, I have a lot of some bitterness about what I can and can't share. And there's just a lot of complex emotions. But what I do not have is any feeling of need to post regularly. And again, I know that it's a hindrance to this job, because that's not what this is for. But as a human, my life changed so much. That's who I am. So if radio doesn't want me because of that anymore, that's their loss, but I changed as a human. So my relationship with social media changed. So no, I do not feel pressured to post, because you get what you fucking get.
Mic drop.
Makes sense.
And that's that.
I don't feel pressured to, because I've always wanted to. And I've always been on social media for whatever way it looked, even before social media was the term. Before MySpace, before Facebook, I was on different little sites where you had profiles and you would talk to people. When I was in high school back in 2003.
Yeah, I remember that.
When you couldn't even upload a picture.
Yeah. You had to get a floppy disk.
Yeah.
One time in high school, I scanned a photo into the computer. I put it on a floppy disk, and then you had to put the floppy disk in the thing, and then you could. Y'all.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot that I had to go through. So I never feel pressured to. The only time I feel pressured is for the Miguel and Holly Insta.
Yeah.
Over the past 2 years, my personal social media has taken a back seat, because I made a personal decision that I wanted to build up the Miguel and Holly social media. I wanted that to be a place for the community. And also, I just didn't want it to feel like I was focusing on mine, because I hate when I listen to other morning shows and the host is just like, here's my social media, and then no one else gets to say theirs. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. Because that's not a community. That's just you building yourself up. And I feel like, as the sort of person behind this, I put the puzzle pieces together of what we do.
And I'm grateful to you, because of what all I've been through. I couldn't do it.
Right.
I couldn't do it. So we are surviving solely because of you. And I can't tell you how thankful I am.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I enjoy it. So I do feel pressure for the Miguel and Holly Insta to make sure that is always active, that there's something going on. Because like Holly said, 10 years ago, back in 2011, we didn't have, or we had Instagram, but
it wasn't stories.
You didn't have stories. You just had posts. And even then,
Snapchat changed everything.
Right. It did. And so there wasn't that immediate need to do it all the time, even on the weekends. And so when I wake up Saturday mornings, before I go to spin class, Saturday mornings at 9:30, I'm like, all right, I need to post Tampa Bay Secrets. I need to post headphone karaoke, so people remember to watch the video and vote. What are some other things we need to promote? So yes, I do feel pressure when it comes to that.
Absolutely.
But with my personal stuff, I'm just already on it. And so that's why, but I also too have changed how I handle that, because when I was single before Abe, I would post wherever I was, whatever I was doing. Girl, you got Miguel's life 24/7.
Ooh.
But now that our lives have become more adult, and there are some things sort of like Holly, where my life is not 100% open like it used to be, which is weird for me, because I have always been 100% completely, girl.
It's hard when it's not.
Right. If
'Cause
you
when
wanted
you're
to know
used
everything.
it being open,
Right.
it's easy.
So now I have to pick and choose because it's someone else. And there are some days that Abe comes home and he's like, I don't want to fucking be on social media. I don't want to do a funny video. I don't want you to like put the camera in my face and make funny or whatever it is.
Because he didn't sign up to be part of that. He
Right.
just wants you. And while accepting what you do as part of it,
Right.
that doesn't mean that he needs to be on camera.
Right. 24/7.
Right.
So my personal social media has taken a back seat. So I focus more so on the Miguel and Holly social media stuff. So good question,
That was a
Veronica.
good question.
Complex.
Absolutely.
Thanks for asking that.
I hope that I just wanted to run through some of these comments before we go. Holly, do you want to read what the Rio? Because
The Rio Senti said, hello, I just wanted to stop in and say I'm a big fan. Been listening to you guys on the radio for years as well as the podcasts. Keep doing what you guys do. Thank you for being such positive influences. Thank you.
Holly, I think I need glasses. I couldn't see it.
You get out of here with the dang glasses.
I probably do need glasses and I could see it. So like,
And then Rachel said,
I hope that burden gets lifted off you someday. We in the fam love you and thank you. I hope so too. I used to hope it more fervently, but I'm almost sort of coming to a place where I'm like, I don't need to explain. I would love to share because like Miguel, like I used to be an open book. And it hurts to not be able to. But what hurts more is that like one of my what is it called? I actually think it's a trauma response. The need to be understood,
Yeah.
the need to be accepted and understood. I can't even like underscore that word enough. In that my fear, because I want to share, but my fear is that even if I do share, it won't be good enough.
And then where do you go from there?
And I don't want people's view of me to change that much. Although I don't want people here for the wrong reason, but I also feel like some stuff is just private.
Yeah.
And I know now there are some things that people will not understand.
Right.
And that's okay. So that's why I feel like I don't know if I owe an explanation. What I'd like to do is just get it off my chest, but
Right.
I don't know if it's the wisest thing. So we'll see. But I do hope so too, because I do like to share lots of things that are going on in my life, and I think I found a good way to do it at the moment. So I'm okay.
Scott, what's your social media?
At Scott Tavlin, SCOTTAVLIN.
Holly.
Radio Holly for the times I do post on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. It's fun.
Mine is Miguel Fuller, MiguelFuller. And we're going to get to the rest of the questions on Monday. Y'all like that?
good.
You have good ass questions. Like, I feel like for years, y'all have just been like, listen to us jabber on. And y'all are like, we have legit questions. And finally,
Yes.
you have a chance to ask them. So that's really great.
So hit up the Miguel and Holly fam / Platypus Posse group on the Miguel and Holly Facebook page.
Love it.
All right. We'll see you next week. Bye. Wait, we won't be here Monday. We're off on Monday, okay?
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yes, we won't be here Mondays, but we'll pick it up on Wednesday.